Welcome to Skytech-Lens. In early 2025, President Donald Trump, back in the White House, reignited his campaign against Canadian trade practices. He zeroed in on Canada's dairy industry, calling its protectionist system a disgrace and a direct attack on American farmers. Trump's rhetoric quickly escalated to action. By August, he halted all trade negotiations with Ottawa, citing both dairy and a proposed Canadian digital services tax as evidence of bad faith. The White House argued that Canada's high tariffs, up to 400% on some dairy products, were shutting out American farmers and tech companies. Trump demanded a complete overhaul of the trade relationship, threatening severe consequences if Canada didn't comply. These tariffs became a rallying cry, simplifying a complex trade dispute into a powerful political message. The president's strategy was clear: use the dairy dispute as leverage to force broader concessions from Canada, including in telecommunications and banking. By framing the conflict around the American farmer, Trump mobilized his base and set the stage for a high-stakes confrontation. The administration's goal was to rewrite the rules of North American commerce, leaving no sector untouched. The stakes were enormous, with both economies bracing for impact. Trump's aggressive approach left little room for compromise. The trade war narrative was back, and this time the consequences promised to be even greater. The world watched as the US and Canada prepared for another round of economic brinkmanship. Canada's supply management system is at the heart of the dispute. It controls prices, production quotas, and, most controversially, strict import limits for dairy, poultry, and eggs. Designed to stabilize farm incomes and protect small family farms, the system is fiercely defended by Canadian politicians, especially in key provinces like Quebec and Ontario. For Canadians, it's more than policy, it's a social contract and a symbol of agricultural sovereignty. Critics argue it keeps prices high and blocks competition, while supporters say it ensures quality and stability. No Canadian government is willing to dismantle it, making it a political red line. The US sees it as protectionism, Canada sees it as essential. This fundamental clash drives the ongoing trade war. Trump's claim of a 270% tariff wall is only part of the story. Canada uses a tariff rate quota system. Limited US dairy can enter tariff-free, but high tariffs apply only after quotas are filled. In reality, these quotas are rarely met. US producers often don't use their full allowance. The real issue, US industry argues, is how Canada allocates import licenses, favoring domestic processors who have little incentive to import American products. This creates a non-tariff barrier, making it hard for US brands to reach Canadian shelves. Under the USMCA, Canada offered slightly more access, but US farmers say it's not enough. The administrative hurdles, not just the tariffs, fuel American frustration. The dispute is less about numbers and more about market access. For Trump, the high tariffs are a potent symbol. For US farmers, the fight is about breaking through bureaucratic barriers. The tension remains unresolved. The trade war's real victims are farmers on both sides of the border. US dairy producers reliant on Canadian markets saw prices plummet as buyers pulled back. Government relief covered only a fraction of their losses, leaving many facing bankruptcy. Canadian farmers, protected by supply management, avoided price shocks but faced processing bottlenecks and had to dump milk as plants scaled back. Both governments offered aid, but it barely addressed the long-term damage. Combined losses quickly surpassed $1.2 billion. Farmers, often more alike than their politicians, became pawns in a geopolitical struggle. Their futures grew uncertain as the dispute dragged on. The pain was shared even as the policies differed. The trade war's human cost was mounting. Livelihoods and family farms hung in the balance. The stakes were deeply personal. Trump's frustration with dairy soon spilled over into the auto sector. In early 2025, the US imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian vehicles and a 50% duty on Canadian steel. The goal forced automakers to shift production to the US and fulfill America First promises. The move disrupted one of the world's most integrated supply chains, sending shockwaves through the North American auto industry. The tariffs, justified on national security grounds, were widely seen as protectionist. Costs for automakers soared, threatening jobs and investment on both sides of the border. The escalation marked a new, riskier phase in the trade war. The economic fallout was immediate and severe. The auto tariffs hit hard and fast. In Ontario, Ford and Stellantis shut down production lines, unable to absorb the new costs. GM shifted production to the US, leaving Canadian plants idle. Auto parts suppliers saw orders vanish, putting thousands of jobs at risk. The pain crossed borders. U.S. workers faced instability as supply chains fractured. The United Auto Workers warned of job losses driven by political, not market forces. Trump threatened even higher tariffs, freezing investment in Canada's auto sector. The industry, once seamless, was now in chaos. Workers in Windsor and Detroit shared the same anxiety. The tariffs, meant to protect, were causing widespread collateral damage. The future of North American manufacturing was suddenly uncertain. Facing economic disaster, Canada made a major concession, repealing its digital services tax to avoid sweeping U.S. tariffs. Washington saw this as a victory, but Canada drew a line on dairy, passing a law forbidding future concessions on supply management. In retaliation for U.S. tariffs, Canada announced counter-tariffs targeting politically sensitive American goods. Provinces joined in. British Columbia taxed U.S. trucks. Ontario considered surcharges on electricity exports. The tit-for-tat strategy risked further escalation, but Canada aimed to show resolve. The trade war was now multi-layered, with both federal and provincial measures in play. Ottawa hoped to pressure the U.S. into compromise. The standoff hardened, with neither side willing to back down on core issues. The conflict was now about more than economics, it was about national pride. Dairy is a tiny part of U.S.-Canada trade, but it carries outsized political weight. For Trump, it's a symbol of unfairness and a rallying point for his base. For Canadians, supply management is a matter of sovereignty and rural identity. The dispute is less about economics and more about values, fairness, independence, and national pride. Both sides use dairy as a proxy for larger ideological battles. In Canada, defending dairy is political consensus. In the U.S., attacking it is political theater. The unanimous vote in Parliament to protect supply management shows its deep importance. The dairy war is a fight over whose system will prevail in North America. The stakes are far greater than the trade numbers suggest. By late September 2025, the U.S.-Canada trade relationship teeters on the edge. Aggressive tactics and retaliatory measures have created deep uncertainty. Farmers and factory workers on both sides face job losses and instability. The core disputes, dairy, auto, and digital taxes, remain unresolved. A full-blown trade war would devastate both economies and disrupt global supply chains. The path forward demands compromise and political will. The coming weeks will determine whether cooperation or conflict prevails. The future of North American trade and millions of livelihoods hangs in the balance. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel for more updates.